Yes, hello, ho, ho, ho. We hope you're enjoying some of our favorite episodes from Season 1 of Gamble and Finn's Larger Than Live. Last night, we showed our first house guest, Catherine Nero, again. Tonight, it's the very first time we hit the road. That's right. It's the first Gamble and Finn's Larger Than Live road show. We were out at the Starlight Drive-In, in, I think, technically Amelia, for the movie premiere on the big screen of How We Lookin'. That's right. A story about the career of Hall of Famer, Reds announcer, Marty Brennaman. So we were out there beforehand talking to some of the particulars. Of course, we had to get Marty himself, the movie director, Terry Lukemire, and comedian, one of its producers, editors, and extraordinaire, Josh Sneed. So we figured it was perfect timing. It's just 61 days till pitchers and catchers are scheduled to report to spring training for Major League Baseball. So for our baseball fans out there, and this one is for you.
Yes, hello, it's Gamble and Finn, Larger Than Live, in the middle of the drive-in, the Starlight Drive-In Theater. Now, that's the intro so nice you wanted to see it twice, which is why we did that, right. And also because the Wi-Fi just said, you know what, we're not as interested in doing this right now as you guys are, but we think we've got everything under control, and we are up against it, Fred. We got a limited amount of time to deal with a lot of star power.
Well, we do, because a band, Catalina Wine Mixer, takes the stage at 7, then the worldwide movie premiere of How We Lookin', which a few minutes ago, not good.
Yeah.
Not good. The documentary of Hall of Fame and broadcaster, announcer extraordinaire for the Cincinnati Reds, Marty Brennaman. He didn't even have a foresight on this, but he picked a hell of a time to retire, did he not?
Yes, he sure
did.
He'd
be going crazy with what's going on now. But no, we are here at the Starlight Drive-In. It's been 30-plus years since I've been to a drive-in. In fact, I was so impressed when I was out here for our site visit that I actually asked my wife, I said, man, it's amazing. They got those big speakers off the poles. They must have figured out a way to put the smaller one, like the little Bose system in there, sounding great. And she said, hey, you moron, you just tuned to a radio station. I said, oh, okay.
90.7, if I'm not mistaken.
You are correct. And this is the one-time premiere here tonight, and all indications are I had a chance to look at the trailer and see some of the great former Reds names affiliated with this movie, and just hearing Marty's calls make it worthwhile, but it should be a lot of fun.
And we aren't just sitting here as any Tom, Dick, and Harry or Gamble and Finn. We're sitting here with the power players. The man behind the movie, Terry Lukemire, is sitting to our immediate right, to your left, at least unless anything's been reversed. And he knows enough about filmmaking to know what we're up against just trying to pull this bad boy off. Terry, I'll tell you something. It's been a challenge getting it to market, but here we are. You could not have asked for a nicer August 17th, my friend. I can hear the gravel popping. I think we're ready for a good time.
Yeah, you know, I'm an editor by trade because I don't like the live stuff because something will always go wrong. But I'm excited. We're all ready to roll. The movie's loaded in, and it's going to be a great night for it.
Yeah, well, let me ask you, we were just talking before we went on air here, just 10 years since you did the 4192. It doesn't seem like it's been that long. That was, of course, the Pete Rose documentary, and now you've done the one for Marty. And similarities, differences for anybody who saw that, how would you kind of evaluate this one and tell them what they've got to look forward to in this documentary?
Yeah, it's kind of, I wanted to develop a style where I had, I used to say it was Uncle Pete talking to the audience. I kind of stole that from Errol Morris, another documentary filmmaker who has his subject look right down the camera, and then you feel like they're telling stories. So I really, I felt like Marty's that guy that you just want to listen to, and he's told so many stories, and I was like, here's an opportunity to really collect them and get them all in one big thing.
Well, you know, you just said the key word, storytelling. I mean, we've talked about this through our entire radio careers, respectively, together, otherwise. Even this whole larger-than-life gambit that we've put together, it's storytelling. I mean, and we were just off camera before talking about some of the ones that we probably can't talk about here, but, I mean, that's really what it's all about. If you can lock somebody with a good story, people will listen to a story as long as you're willing to tell it.
And it's really so wonderful. It was crazy doing Pete because I hadn't met him, of course, and he was one of my idols and things like that. But he was so giving with his time, and Marty was a part of that movie. I talked him into doing it. He would do anything for Pete. And so I knew, I was like, these guys they're so giving in the storytelling aspect. They're not going to hold back. It's my job, director, editor, to cut out some things, make it a little more family friendly, if you will, for certain things, because I do want these movies to have wide release. And they are. And there's something that I want, especially someone like Marty, when he gets to share it with his great-grandkids or generational stuff.
Well, there's something special about this Reds kind of over the years. The legendary Reds, you go back to the Big Red Machine, and, you start with the first half inning of Marty and what he called with Hank Aaron. We'll talk to him, hopefully, when he joins us at some point tonight. But, when you look at, and just looking at the trailer and all the moments that he had an opportunity to call, when you think 46 years, so I'm 56, I do not remember listening to any other broadcaster, and who can say that about any Major League Baseball team? There might be Vin Scully, Jerry Coleman. There's a few, but there aren't many.
No, I always say on this little media tour that I've been able to do to promote the film, I started my illustrious baseball career in 1974.
Yeah.
So I've only known, Marty and Joe, and then through the years, just growing up, and he's been the voice of my childhood and adulthood now.
Yeah, I was born in 89, wasn't it? 89-ish?
Yeah, right.
Well, no, we used to come up. I grew up in Louisville, and we would drive up for a couple games every summer with my dad and his boss and their boys, and that was, Marty was the guy then. It was mid-'70s when we were coming up, and you think about it, was Al Michaels?
People don't realize
that
Al Michaels,
of
course,
far,
Monday Night Football, that it went from Al Michaels to Marty Brennaman. I don't think there are a lot of people. Well, obviously some weren't alive then, but talk about a lineage of broadcasters. It doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, I always pride myself on doing the research for these things, because you kind of have to be kind of the expert. People will call you out on it if you're wrong, of course. And I was surprised. I hadn't really thought about it. I didn't care about pre-Marty. And then I got to know, Red Barber, Wade Hoyt, and then the 3 years that he did with Joe Nuxhall, with Al Michaels beforehand. And that was just, there's little surprises like that. Of course, some hardcore fans are going to go, well, I knew that. But I'm telling you, there's some stuff in here that you're going to go, I did not know that. I guarantee it.
Well, go ahead.
Well, just out of curiosity, he's had so many great calls, is there one or two for you that are favorites?
Well, 4192 clearly is something close to my heart. I like to tell this story. I was at Ohio State when that happened, and my mom got into it big time, and she actually recorded it on Betamax. And the Reds were very supportive. Major League Baseball wouldn't license that to me.
Oh, right.
And I was like, Mom, do you have that tape? The thing you see in that movie is my mom's 4192.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
From Betamax.
That's great.
So I really do like that one. But, because, again, I grew up starting baseball with the Big Red Machine. So when you hear 76, and this one belongs to the Reds, things like that. And I was overseas during 1990 World Series. So it was really fun to put together that chapter.
Oh, bet, yeah.
Because I didn't get to live it live. I had to listen to it on radio in the Philippines.
Oh, wow. Well, I want to know, is there a blooper reel or a Christmas reel or whatever that we're going to get that a few of us might get to see?
We got so many. I've been releasing some outtakes. I do want to look deeper, and there's some good stuff like that.
All right.
It's just so overwhelming to manage the amount of footage. As Tom was just saying, 46 years.
Yeah. And
I got him growing up, of course, so his pre-professional life, or with the Reds anyway. So it's a lot of stuff to cover, and I call this this is 2 hours long, but it's my Cincinnati Supercut, because I know that if I get a distribution, they're going to make me chop it down to some trim 90. So I'm really happy that I get a chance to share the longer cut on the shoot.
Well, you mentioned distribution. Tonight's a one-time only showing, but I know there are aspirations for this film to be picked up. And it would seem logical for me, and I don't want to, but Fox Sports Ohio obviously shows the Reds. This seems like a perfect ESPN 30 for 30, and I'm sure Amazon, whatever, I'm sure, give fans a little insight as to where you're trying to take this.
We're definitely, we have plans for all of that. Going to be talking to a sales agent. I do feel like it's got ESPN potential because I do cover a lot of things. I'm a big Marty fan, clearly. I think he's our Vince Scully. I think he's national, all the awards that he's won. But some people might say, well, your market, But I'm going, no, you got to watch the movie. We've got a lot of – if you're just a general baseball fan, you're going to love this stuff. We cover Vince Scully. We cover a lot of things like that. So very pumped. So I think it has some wide appeal.
Well, I think I think everybody's excited, and I know there's probably things you wanted in there that maybe there's that one thing that 90 seconds that you're like, God, I got to get it out of there. But is there that one thing that you had to cut out that you're like, oh, if I could have just left that in there?
Well, it wasn't necessarily something I had to cut out. It's something that I desperately wanted to get, and that was when Randy Macho Savage was in the booth, and I couldn't get the radio broadcast. I talked to the Reds. I talked to everybody for that because I got Randy Poffo's baseball card when he was with the Reds.
Oh, wow.
And I had all these great photos of it, and they gave me some stuff that you'll see in the intro of Joe and Marty and Yid, and then Randy sitting between them. And that story was so good.
That's awesome. Well, Terry, we certainly appreciate it. I want to wish you the best of luck with this, and I know we're going to get a chance to look at the trailer momentarily because I think the Hall of Famer himself is going to join us. So, Terry Lukemire, the director, producer, editor, anything else?
A little bit of everything on this movie. It's independent filmmaking. You just got to get her done.
There you go. Well,
now he's got to go string up the film into the projector.
Yeah, there you go.
Fred.
Right. I think he's a little bit past that, maybe. But, Terry, thanks for having us out here tonight.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
And we appreciate it. Best of luck with the movie. And now let's take a look. Speaking of how we looking, let's take a look at the trailer.
I think everybody in my profession lives with the fear that you're going to be a part of something like that and you may screw it up.
The pitch. And a high drive. Hit back into deep right field. Swung on. Long drive. Right field. It's gone. And this one belongs to the Reds.
This wasn't just a job. They lived and breathed and died, Reds baseball.
That impact that he's had on this club, building this brand throughout Reds country, is immense.
It was his first half inning.
Swung on, long shot, into deep left field. Rose is back, and that ball is gone.
And right then you knew this guy's special. This guy was put on earth to do this.
And here it comes, and it is swung out and missed. Bob Browning has pitched a perfect game.
Hair on the back of my neck still stands up when I hear it.
I was there. It gave me chills, and listening to it, it still does.
I'd stack him up there basketball with anybody that's ever been behind the microphone in the basketball game.
There's Leitner. He turns, he shoots, it is good!
And as the momentum builds, I can see him lean forward, and I can see those veins in his neck start to come up.
Hit number 4192. A line drive single into left center field, a clean base hit.
Masterful.
Or fresh hot pizza at Superbuys. Ha! I'm a regular long fella, right?
Actually, you're a regular short fella.
They would get mail where it would be sent to Marty and Joe with no address. Just Marty and Joe, Cincinnati, Ohio.
Marty and Joe were my childhood. It was everything.
You can't ask for any better than having that guy as your first partner and your only partner for better than 30 years.
If you don't hustle and you're a lousy player and you make some bad plays, you're going to hear about it.
And I just remember him saying something along the lines of, that's fine, you have your opinion, I have mine, I'm going to be here long after you're gone.
This is the kind of thing, quite honestly, right now, that makes you want to see the Chicago Cubs team lose.
He started off with his hand and then gave the safe sign. I am specifically citing one umpire, and he is bad news.
Just call it the way it is. Call it the way you see it.
He had a very strong opinion of how the game should be played and never backed down.
I mean, you're not going to see the likes of Marty Brennaman and his style anymore.
You came through!
That is without a doubt ahead of anything that's ever been broadcast on the radio.
It just took it to a whole different level.
He just does a lot of things for a lot of people.
And Marty has done it for such a long time. He always has a voice in this town, and he always will.
And this one belongs to the Reds.
Welcome back to the Starlight Drive-In. I believe Monroe Township is the place. We were just talking. It's Gamble and Finn, the reality check road show tonight for the very first time on the road. And we're out here because tonight the worldwide premiere of a movie. And you can check out the movie poster. We've got that too. How We Lookin'.
Yeah, you just saw the trailer
there you
right
go.
there.
Saw the trailer, the documentary of Hall of Fame broadcaster for the Cincinnati Reds, who had no idea that he was retiring at exactly the right time, did he? But that would be our special guest here on our stage, our gravel Lot, whatever, Mr. Marty Brennaman.
Nice to be with you guys.
Glad to have you.
Thank you.
And you got to love sitting down in a chair, putting a mic up to your mouth, and having the host go, dude, it's just us.
I know it.
It doesn't matter what happens.
I'm good with it. I'm good with it.
How cool is this for you? I mean, really. I mean, you've obviously had a legendary career. You're in Cooperstown. You're in the Reds Hall of Fame. But I got to believe something like this, when you watch and you hear all the people talk about what you've meant to them in baseball, it's just got to be awesome.
Well, Tom, when Terry first came to me about, 18, 19 months ago about doing it, and if I repeat some of the things he said, I apologize, but I told him, I said, just hold off on this, because they didn't know that I was going to announce in January of 19 that was going to be my last year. And then after the fact, I said it would be kind of ridiculous to have started this process not knowing that last year was going to be my last season. But my first reaction was I was stunned. I mean, I could not imagine anybody wanting to do a documentary on me. Not that I don't think I have a great career. I had a tremendous career, as fulfilling as anything I could have ever dreamed about when I first started. But you just don't think in those terms.
Sure.
You don't think about that.
Yeah. Well, and I would say because you don't think in those terms makes you the perfect subject matter for something like this.
Well, yeah, the great thing was to work with Terry Lukemire and his people. He is an incredibly talented guy. All the people that work for him and with him are the same. In fact, so much so that he was over our house, 2 weeks ago, some finishing touches on some things that I needed to do for him. And he asked Amanda and me, he said, would you like to see this? And I said, no. I wanted the night at the Starlight Drive-In, I want to see it for the first time like everybody else. And I think he was kind of taken aback. Amanda, on the other hand, she wanted to see it.
Yeah.
And I prevailed. I said, well, I'm not going to watch it. I saw the trailer. Terry has religiously sent us outtakes of things that are not going to be in the finished product, which are really good. And so I'm really excited about seeing it for the very, very first time tonight.
Be remiss if we didn't ask you, because a lot of people, I don't think, understand the How We Lookin. I mean, True fans who have listened to Reds baseball and listened to you get it. But give the genesis of that, the very first time that came about, and how that just became, really, it almost became an every game occurrence. Did it not in some way, shape, or form?
I have no idea.
Don't you really?
Right?
No clue. It's just the demented mind of a left-hander. That's what I tell people. Say, well, where did the Titanic struggle come from? I have no idea where that came from. Most of the stuff that I uttered, the only thing I can vaguely remember is that this one belongs to the Reds, and I can remember 2 weeks into my first year in '74, I think Concepcion got a hit in the bottom of the ninth or the bottom of the extra inning on the road to, it was the bottom of the ninth at Riverfront to win the game, and I was driving back to my house in Anderson Township that night and thought, you know what, that might be a pretty good thing to end every Reds win with, having no idea that I would say it as much as I said it in 74, 75, and 76. And but the rest of it, I have no clue. I cannot even begin to tell you where How We Lookin came from.
And you know what? I think a lot of those things take on a life of their own, even if they come out of nowhere. But what's funny is it morphed into this other thing that became a secondary vernacular within the radio station. When I worked at EBN and would be in the hallways with the LW guys or whatever, all you'd have to hear, you'd have to walk by and all you'd have to hear somebody go is, not good. And that was it. You really knew. Even if the question hadn't been asked, that was the determination of where we were.
I like that. That's very good.
We might have been talking about something with the fireworks, or we might have been talking about something else, or you might have just been walking by going, not good.
Well, it's funny. I actually emailed back and forth with Yid this week, and he dropped a response to me that just said, not good.
Yeah, did he really?
So, still going on. Yeah.
Well, I felt sorry for Terry because he said people were commenting about this online, and somebody would just put not good, and then his buddy's like, did they see it? Did they not like it? They just didn't get that part of it.
That's funny. I didn't know that. That's good.
Well, it was interesting. I was watching some of the Fox Sports Ohio did some of the old, some of the classic, World Series games, and I had forgotten about you doing the crossover. And man, did you look and sound young? I mean, do you ever?
I was young.
I know you were, but I want to ask you.
I'm scared to death too.
You're a baseball purist. I mean, you're a baseball.
I am. Well, you know what? I am, and I have evolved into, in some situations, not.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about, because I think most people, especially first it was with the old left-hander with Joe and then with the Cowboy, it seemed to me like you really loved kind of you went from calling the baseball game to then just some of the banter that you guys had back and forth, and you obviously there were plenty of games where you needed that
Right.
when the baseball wasn't paramount. Did you come to enjoy that a lot more than you ever thought you would?
Yeah, and the whole thing evolved with Joe, and I've had people come up to me and said, that's really a really cool shtick, and I said it's not a shtick.
Yeah.
I mean, because that implies that we sat down one day and said, you know what, we ought to talk about your golf game and my tomato plants and all the things and the Elvis Shrine and all the things that went on between me and Joe that had nothing to do with baseball. It's just something that evolved, and it evolved because of the friendship that we had. And everything was natural. There was nothing planned. The Elvis thing was one of the great things of all time because it was spontaneously one night we'd start talking about Elvis. Joe didn't know Elvis Presley from that wall, and I'll tell you another good story about that too. And so I made a very innocent comment one night. I said, "Hey, if any of you folks listening to our broadcast have any Elvis memorabilia that you don't want back," I said, "I want to underline that enough.
Right,
but if
right.
you want to send it in to me, I will make sure that it's displayed in the booth." We were inundated.
Yeah.
I mean, and in fact, we got some stuff that today is worth a lot of money.
Really?
And I was stunned by it. And then I had to put that stuff up every night and take it down. So it was, and Brantley was the same way. Brantley had the same type of personality that Joe did, and it was just a good relationship. Whether it would have flown in New York or Chicago and L.A., I don't know, but it worked here. And it was a good thing because God knows, I don't know what my one-loss record is since 74 through 19, but it ain't good. And that's a big old how we looking not good, I can tell you.
We're here at the Starlight Drive, and it's Gamble and Finn. It's the Reality Check Roadshow. Tonight's worldwide premiere of How We Lookin, the documentary of Reds Hall of Fame broadcaster Marty Brennaman, who's been kind enough to stop by and join us. Was there any one particular game or time where you realized, because, I mean, I don't think sometimes, I know even when you're on the radio, you don't realize the power of the voice and that how many people listen and how many people just are on the edge of their seats listening. And you're describing games before there was all this TV
Right,
where you could
right.
see every game.
Yep.
Was there any one game or any one moment where you said, man, this is crazy how important this is to people?
We played a game one. I think I knew by then, but it was really it came home one night. The Reds were playing the Giants at that old Candlestick Park in San Francisco, and John Miller had been in the booth and had talked about when he had been with the Boston Red Sox. This is off the air, and how one night they were playing in Oakland, and he said, if people listening to us back in Boston want to send, this is before social media, a card or a letter or a phone call to the Red Sox office to let us know that at 1:30 back in Boston you were listening to the game. So I opened it by saying to Joe during a commercial break, I said, it was like 10 minutes to 1. I said, when you come back, it's your seventh inning, why don't you drop the F word on the air? And he said, what are you talking? I said, nobody's listening to us back there at this time of night. I said, just go ahead and do it. And he said, no, you do it. I said, no, I'm not going to do it. It's your inning. Well, anyway, it was the funniest.
It was his inning. That's
It was the funniest thing in the world because he really was serious. He thought I was serious. Anyway, I came back and I said, same thing John had said to Red Sox fans a number of years. We were inundated with mail. I think we had somewhere between 800 and 1,000 pieces of mail. And I talked to a guy who was in this type of business where there are formulas that you can do. He said, that doesn't happen.
Unheard
he
of.
said, that's
Wow.
impossible.
Yeah.
He said, you cannot imagine how many people were up closing in on 1 o'clock listening to your broadcast. At that point, I said, what we do, even at that late hour, and people got to get up and go to work the next day back here, they're still listening.
That's fantastic. Well, and I would tell you that speaks to what you were just saying earlier, the organic nature of how you guys did things, that you were storytelling even then. And, and I had the opportunity to work down with with Skip. We were just talking about Skip and Pete
Right.
down at the Braves, and that's my only experience in the booth. I'd never had the opportunity to be up in there with you guys, but watching the interaction between those two guys and what they would get off to talking about.
Well, they had the same kind of relationship that
Exactly.
Joe and I had.
And it's so funny because, I mean, and as you said, after Joe, I mean, how many people know how many scoops of ice cream the radio guy likes when he goes to UDF?
That's right,
But
exactly.
that was such a big part of the Cowboy and you kind of making that mesh. And I just think it speaks to what a part of the storyteller you've been for people in this market and all the different things you've done outside.
That was one of the things that, when I had the first 3 or 4 or 5 years, I couldn't tell any stories because I had no background, I had no experience.
Oh, yeah.
And when I reached the point where something would happen in a game and I could relate it to something that had happened a number of years ago, I thought, you know what, I'm getting there now because I always marvel at Scully, who is the greatest storyteller of all time as far as baseball is concerned, and that's a handicap that I had to deal with. And once I got to that point and I could tell stories, and it really enhances the broadcast, but it takes a while.
I have 2 more questions for you. One, watching the trailer and hearing your son Tom mention about you doing basketball games. It's got to make you feel great, though, knowing that Tom did Cubs games, did Diamondback games, and now he's back here doing Reds games on TV. You've had the chance to work with him.
Yep.
But basketball for you, obviously baseball was, and they say, multi-sport athletes, some guys made the right choice. When you look back, though, how much did you enjoy basketball? You had an opportunity to do a lot of great. I mean, you were in the ACC and doing NCAA games. Baseball still the right choice for you?
It was a right choice, but I got so much enjoyment out of doing college basketball. I mean, it was such a kick. And even today, I am in that category that they refer to when they say so-and-so's a junkie. I read recruiting services. I know where guys are going to go
You're
to
that
school.
guy.
I know I'm an obnoxious
You're that guy,
bastard. but I was blessed. I was so blessed when I did the NCAA because I had so many great games. I had the Leitner game.
Yeah.
The one right after the other. Greg Anthony hit a shot in overtime against Arizona in the regional final out at Nichols Arena in Denver, which is no longer there, that sent them into the Final Four, which was a major upset. I was just blessed to be a part of what I think is the greatest sporting event in the history of mankind, and that's the NCAA tournament. I don't think there's anything that can equal it. And so I was blessed. I really was.
Now, this for me, I'm going to ask you, but this is probably the toughest for you. I watched that trailer, and I'm like, man, started with Hank Aaron, and what a way to start, right?
Yeah.
But, I mean, when you look at Browning's perfect game, to Griffey's 500, to all the great – are there 2 or 3 that stick out more than any others as the most memorable? And one question I have, did you, when you knew something when you're on the precipice of somebody hitting number 500, did you work it out in your mind how you would make that call, or did you just let it flow?
I let it flow. I know guys that have done that, and they've come up with something that was cute and people would talk about for years to come. I was not good enough to pull it off and make it, and it didn't sound contrived. I could not do that. So I had to rely on being able to, go with the flow and try and create verbally the kind of aura that was in the ballpark, the atmosphere, and hopefully that it worked. And I was fortunate because I think all the big calls that I had, I don't think I screwed up any of them.
No, you didn't.
But the 2 calls that probably are my favorite calls were Griffey's 500th home run off Matt Morris on a Father's Day in St. Louis, and Jay Bruce's home run that beat the Astros and sent them into the postseason in 2010. They were the 2 calls that, and I'm my own worst critic. I could walk out of a booth and say I had a good night or I had a bad night, and I knew that. But I was happy with those calls, and over and above, having Rose's hit and Browning's perfect game and Seaver's no-hitter and all the rest of that stuff.
All right.
Well, I would tell you, too, everybody, anybody that ever heard you knew that you were your own toughest critic, as you could have been with anybody, and they knew they were always getting the honest truth from you.
I appreciate that. I was fortunate to work for people that over the years, I'm sure they cringed. John Allen was a COO one time, and we'd be at cocktail parties or social events, and he'd say, somebody would bring that up, and John would say, in mixed company, you have to understand that Marty's opinions oftentimes are not those of ownership and management, and everybody would
the old
laugh.
disclaimer.
He was dead serious.
Right,
He wasn't messing around.
Well, Marty's great night. We're glad to be here.
Thanks,
it's
fellas.
always great
Enjoyed
to see
being
you.
with you. Thanks for being out here.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And
I look
best of luck
forward
with the
to it.
movie. Should be fun.
I hope so. Thank you.
All right,
Thanks a
It'll be
lot.
good stuff. And by the way, you're looking great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
looking a hell of a lot better than we are.
No, you guys are looking fine.
We know how we look. Not good.
No, I would not say that.
Right. You can say that. We don't care. It's all good.
All right.
There you
Well,
go.
I tell you what, it's been great. We have dominated so much of your time. I know there's lots of people that want to say hello, but I know Josh is waiting in the wings. We've seen all sorts of celebrities. I just saw Bob Kavoyan from Bob and Tom.
Bob's
He's
a
made
good friend of
the
mine.
trip over
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
Indy, so
Good
I just
friend
saw him scooting around. So thank you so much
All
for
right,
your time,
guys.
brother.
Yeah, appreciate you
Enjoy.
stopping by. Thanks.
All right,
Appreciate it,
outstanding.
man.
And so we're going to have Josh step in too. Josh, friend of mine for a long time, a comedian, the proprietor and owner of Cincy Shirts, and one legend about to be dethroned and reseated by another. How about that? It's good stuff. So the hand sanitizer is on his hands, and now we're ready to go.
Welcome.
To work to our
Thanks
next.
for having me. Thanks for being here.
Glad to help.
Thank
This is
you.
fun.
Welcome
It's
to
awesome.
you guys.
Yeah. It's been a while since I was in the trunk of a car going into a drive-in, so it's been a while. It's been that long,
You
literally.
used to sneak in? Is that what
Yeah,
you
over at the Dent, which I don't believe exists anymore. I think there's only two. I think this one here and the one up in Hamilton,
and then
right?
This one in Hamilton, yeah.
We used to pack as many as we could and hope that the people who were driving would let your ass out of the trunk when you got inside.
Or
You
that there
never
wasn't
knew.
somebody just firing a .22 rifle into the trunk
Right,
just to
right.
make
Just to make sure. That's hilarious.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I mean, kudos to be in the drive-in game in 2020.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
you were
Well,
really planning for something like
You
this to
were,
happen.
and what a great business to be in right now, right?
Right. It's like sitting on Beanie Babies saying, just
Yeah.
wait a little bit longer.
Let me tell
be
you
back.
something, son. I just moved my daughter into freshman year of college. I go, we looked at this closet full of Webkins. I go, we're keeping every goddamn one of those. We're keeping every single one because I'm selling them to those idiots that were buying the Princess Diana Beanie Baby.
That's right.
So the long game is absolutely in play.
Yeah, but this is great. I mean, Starlight's been fantastic to work with, super accommodating, and we were glad that we had an outlet to see it because we've been sitting on it, waiting for people to see it because it's so good. It is so good.
Yeah, and how much fun is this for you? I mean, I know you were involved with the film, and I know Terry did. It's hard to believe it's been 10 years since 4192, but boy, just watching the trailer and seeing the guest list out here tonight and the names and just what an amazing. I can't imagine 46 years and all those calls and all those great games and teams. Boy, when you see it like this, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's you think about documentaries and like as a fan, is one thing to think, oh, I remember that play and I remember where I was when I saw that play, but to be able to sit and hear the story of what led up to that play, what happened after the play, what was the player's reaction to hearing the way he called it, you know what I mean? Like hearing those kind of stories was very cool. Plus tons of stories that I didn't even know about. You guys brought up the NCAA game with Christian Laettner. I mean, like the games that he has been a part of in some way. I mean, it's insane. And we had trouble cutting it down to 2 hours.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that, seeing that in the trailer, and to hear Tom Browning talk about how he still gets goosebumps when he watches and hears that last call, that final out of his perfect game. It's pretty incredible.
And I think a lot of Reds fans, for as much as we know Marty from 1975, to present, right? Like to know Marty's story and to learn his story about how he got into broadcasting and where he grew up and that sort of thing. I mean, these are stories people haven't heard before. Yeah. We have outtakes of commercials from Kroger with him and Joe Nuxall that we were able to unearth. I mean, diehard Reds fans like myself think we already know everything we're going to see in here, and I can promise you that you don't.
Well, that's what's so great about it. Josh Sneed is our guest. It's Gamble and Finn, larger than live, in the middle of the drive-in. That would be here at Starlight Drive-In, just out past Amelia. It's going to be the cars are starting to file in. We're the opening act and have about another 20 minutes before Catalina Wine Mixer Band takes the stage that's set up in front of the screen. The premiere kicks off around 8 o'clock. Josh, we've known each other for a long time from the comedy that that you've done and then you obviously with Cincy shirts, but you've done a lot of real cool interactive stuff with Reds players over the years. What kind of vibe have you gotten? Because he hasn't always had the nicest thing to say about certain players' effort at a given time or whatever.
Well,
and they didn't like it all the time.
You're right, and you'll see in the film, Bronson Arroyo is one of those guys that Marty was hard on. He did not shy away from criticizing him, whether it was about his pitching or his late night music playing. Was that affecting how he performed on the field? And Bronson said, like, when I was playing, man, I hated to hear that stuff, but after I got to know him and got out of the business and understood how this sort of side of it works, he's like, I appreciate him and I appreciate what he did, and he always showed up the next day. That's what we heard from everybody, Browning and everybody. No matter what he said about you, he was in the locker room the very next day, so if you had a problem, you could talk to him about it.
It's funny you mentioned that because I was cutting teeth in journalism, and that's the one thing. If you're going to have, even on talk radio too, if you're going to rip somebody, then be willing to go down in the clubhouse and show your face and meet them face-to-face. But I got to tell you, as a fan and someone who listens, I am irritated today by ass-kissing announcers. I can't stand it.
There's a lot of equivocating.
Oh, it's terrible. And that's the one thing for Marty. When you heard him make an assessment of something, it was believable. And a lot of people, he's too critical. No, he's brutally honest.
Right.
And as a fan, I'd rather hear that.
Right, and I think that's what made him so endearing to Reds fans was they felt like this guy would sit and watch the game with us and say the same things that we're saying and not just,
Yeah. Well, he's saying the same thing about Cubs fans that we'd be saying about Cubs
we
fans.
talk about that. We talk about the umpires he had run-ins with.
John Lilly, your food's ready.
Also, John Lily's food.
That's important. John's food is ready.
We are larger than life, by the way. So, John, you've got a few minutes before it gets cold, and we're going to have to remake it.
Yep. Well, or we're going to go eat it.
Jordan, your food's ready.
Jordan, we've had a lot of food orders here.
Outstanding. No one seemed to mention that a couple weeks
ago.
No, they did. When we were out here.
And if you wondered if this was live, now you know. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, and the other thing that was really cool
hungry,
for me,
Fred.
which is sort of a side note, is there's a set of interviews that you'll see in here that were filmed in my basement.
Oh, that's
cool.
So
my Reds fan cave. It's nice to see that it translates well to the big screen.
I think we're a couple. Was that on the trailer?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought so.
Yeah.
It was interesting you said it because I was watching the trailer thinking, I wonder where that is.
Yeah.
Now I know.
Yid and Bronson and Tom Browning, whenever they're talking in my basement.
Oh,
so
that
was really cool for
That
me.
is cool.
Like, I'm such a nerd for that stuff.
Well, I love the fact that Marty told us a little bit ago he has not seen it.
Right.
And
Well, they asked if they could, and we said no. We wanted him to see it tonight.
That's interesting. He told it the opposite way.
Oh, really?
He said it was offered.
I will say this.
That's interesting.
Marty did not want to see it.
She said, Amanda said yes.
She wanted to know if she should see it before tonight, and we told her she doesn't need to.
Doesn't need to.
She'll be happy with it, and we would rather them both see it tonight for the first time.
Good.
But he's not lying. He said he didn't want to see it till tonight.
All right. Well, you don't know if you don't want to know if it's a boy or a girl. We're about to give birth to what's going to be a hell of a thing.
Yeah, not blue or red.
So we talked to Terry about this a little earlier, Terry Lukemire, and just about the distribution of this, and he mentioned that he thinks it's got legs, and I can't imagine. And I know one of the things, if you get on a national network, it has to go beyond your city. I mean, obviously, this is a big deal if you're somebody who's a Reds fan, followed Reds baseball. But I got to believe a career like this and as many great moments and a true story like this, I think it's got legs.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to compare him to the Tiger King, but I think we've seen that documentaries that are successful don't always have to be about stories that you think you know. A lot of the ESPN 30 for 30s are like, I kind of remember seeing that, and then you hear the whole story. And I think that outside of Reds country, there's probably a lot of people that, Cubs fans know him or
sure.
The movie is packed with people that are national names that aren't just, like Urban Meyer, Kirk Herbstreit, Nick Lachey.
Yeah.
So there's
not
names
the usual suspects.
Yeah, there's names in the movie that people outside of Cincinnati will recognize, which I think helps it reach a larger audience. But I just think the storytelling of his career is you have such an appreciation for how many cool things he was a part of that even non-Reds fans would still be just like, man, that was really cool.
Well, when you think about it, there's a pantheon of announcers. There's the Harry Careys, there's
Jack
Buck and
Scully,
Scully and a handful of others, but and he clearly is on that Mount Rushmore.
Has to be.
So I would think that there is, if you're a true baseball fan and not necessarily a purist for the game, but a baseball fan of somebody that told it like it was every single time he saw it. You got to be interested in this, even if you're a stinking Cubs fan or a Dodgers fan or whatever it is. But I am ready. In fact, I am so ready to see this. He still thought that you brought out the things and put them on the pole.
It's been so long
since inside your window.
Hung it inside the window.
Well, no, but I was impressed when we did the site visit here. I thought, man, this is technology at the Starlight. They must have a cool little Bose speaker system inside the pole.
Yeah,
I'm ready.
I went ahead and I dug out my little transistor
so you
radio.
Put it on 90.7.
90.7. Right. I'll be ready to go and find out how we're looking and how we're sounding.
Yeah. It's gonna be a really fun night, you guys.
Well, it obviously looks like it's going to be a nice turnout, and everybody. It's a perfect weather night, and you couldn't ask for a better evening than tonight. Really,
I mean, I think that speaks to Marty's reach, right? Monday night,
no question.
Dead summer, a lot of people going back to school, just starting to go back to work. They choose to be out here. I think that shows how much people love him.
The producer is going to speak off camera for a second because I wanted to tell the story last week. Here's exactly what Tom said as we were driving away. Are those poles, is the sound in the pole, or do they bring it out to you?
I thought technology had taken over, man.
No.
I thought it was a
or
little
do
Bose,
they bring it out to you?
That's
and
hilarious.
That's actually, Finn said, in a poodle skirt on roller skates. That's what they do.
Gravel,
In the gravel.
That would be much more interesting, wouldn't it?
So many face plants.
That would be fantastic.
Well, speaking of delivering the food, we better make sure that Johnny and Jenny get their dogs because we're getting ready to start with Catalina Wine Mixer in a couple minutes. We don't want anybody to miss their chow.
No, we do not, because once they start, they're going to have a rough. They're going to have to walk around holding up like somebody at the airport holding up a sign. Your food is ready,
Fred,
right?
I don't know if this tells you how long it's been since I pulled this little radio out. But
I was going to say the fact that you still own a transistor radio dates you about as bad as me, right?
Did you find that in with the Webkins?
Have Marty sign that for me.
You should.
It's like Christmas lights. I can't get my stupid.
Maybe by 8 o'clock you'll have that ready to use.
Well, hopefully, as part of Larger Than Live, we're going to run an idea by this guy over here and see if we can incorporate
we do have a
them
good idea
into a regular portion of this particular program. But boss, congratulations on everything that you've done and the way you've parlayed all of these different things so flawlessly into one another. It's so cool to see, and so happy for you being a producer on this movie. Can't wait to see it.
I appreciate the time. You are two of my favorite people, and you've been good to me even when I had nothing going on. So,
well, now is there a special shirt for this movie too?
Not yet, but
okay,
in the works,
perhaps.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
It's a great phrase.
Yeah, we have to wait and see how things shake out with the sales, but we've got some ideas. There will be no shortage of Marty shirts, I guarantee you.
I'm thinking of how we looking on the front and a not good on the back.
Not good.
That would work,
not good. Right across the
there
gut.
you go. Right. Yeah. Well,
John Lilly, your food's ready.
Come on, John. It's getting cold.
It's been like 10 minutes, John.
Jordan too. I mean, it's not like they
can. Oyster, your food's ready.
See, Michael
With
better
a name
get his
like
now.
oyster. What are you going to
they're
order at the
serving oysters
drive-in?
here?
Man, I tell you,
The whole family.
Let me give you a news flash. No,
not good.
No,
not
maybe
good.
not.
No
How are we
offense.
looking?
No, not good. No offense to the head chef. here at the Starlight.
The head chef. Ohio River oysters.
I ain't having
not
the oysters.
good.
All right, boss. Well, go do some glad handing and some baby kissing.
Great to
and,
see you.
Have a great time.
Thank you, boys. Always
Right.
my pleasure.
Cheers.
Josh Sneed. Yes, indeed. There you go. Man, I don't know. I'm going to investigate some oysters now, huh?
I'm going to have to drive.
Think they can make me a little oyster stew here at the Starlight?
That's right up there with the gas station burrito or whatever.
Well, wait a minute. You remember the Gentleman's Club burger and chili.
That's right.
Anything's see,
Well,
maybe we shouldn't sell it short, right?
I will tell you right now, strip club food was good enough for what's his face from the NBA.
Well, it was. He had to leave the bubble. Good enough to get you out of your bubble.
Fred, I don't know.
We better get in our bubble now.
Normally we would do show and tell about now, but I think this whole
is
damn
it.
show has been show. And
We've shown and we've told.
right there, we just told people their food was ready. So.
Well, there's your show and tell. You come out to the Starlight, they'll make you some oysters. There you go.
It doesn't get any better than this. The early answer to how we looking, pretty good.
Pretty good tonight.
All right. We'll love
Thanks
you
to
back
Lori and Eagle. Don't
Yeah.
forget our production crew because
Absolutely. Oh, my
all we
God.
do is get up here and just babble on.
Now we got to go
Yes.
move our cars so we're out of the way and get this tent down, and we're going to be sitting gawking at the screen like everybody else. Catalina Wine Mixer Band up here in about 10 minutes, and at 8 o'clock they start rolling the tape or rolling film
Absolutely.
or playing the digital file or do whatever it is that puts the movie up on the big screen. We'll be back to Abnormal.
Carry out
next
oysters, Fred,
Monday
being
night.
walked
She
across
got
the
her
gravel.
oysters.
She
You
got
know, I
her
think I'm going to go
oysters.
get some lobster claws.
Right.
You want
little
the
bisque?
surf?
See if we can get some lobster bisque.
Get the surf and turf.
All right, have yourself a great night. We're back next Monday, normal location, larger than live at the Oasis on the back 40. So have yourself a great week, and don't forget, check this out. Ooh, like, share.
Yes, and
right?
subscribe.
Subscribe,
because we
yes.
have our own what?
Customized URL on
you?
YouTube, baby. We
I'll tell
got a
you what,
YouTube
from
channel.
the guy who thought they put the speakers in the poles.
Hey, I'm
he's
coming
really-
around
he's
one at a
really-
time.
He's really starting to get a grasp of the technology. Subscribe if you. I don't even know if I'm looking at the right camera, to be honest with you. Oh no, I wasn't.
One digital platform at a time.
That's right. All right.
Slowly.
Well, I got one digit left for it's for him, and it's off camera. So we will see you guys next time,
All
or
right.
relatively, or you'll see us. We'll be back on the back 40 in the Oasis at House Gamble. Hopefully, weather permitting, not in the Thunderdome. It's been a lot of fun, Fred.
It
This
has
has been a
been
good
fun.
one.
All
All right. Gamble and Finn, it is the Reality Check Roadshow larger than live here at the Starlight Drive-In just outside Amelia. We're getting ready to roll on How We Lookin'.
Good.